Good afternoon, everybody. Here we are again at RSA. Hope you're all having a great week. I'm Billbrenner. I am VP of Content Strategy here at Security Weekly and Cyber Risk Alliance, and I am delighted to be here with Bryan Ware, CEO of LookingGlass Cyber Solutions. Welcome.
Thanks, Bill.
How's your week going so far?
It feels like it's been 2 weeks,
Yeah,
but I think it's been 2 days. So
but you still have a voice.
I still have a voice.
So we're that's, the best you can ask for
Yep.
the first in-person event in a couple of years for myself anyway.
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, to be back here. That last RSA was a long, long time ago.
That was my last business travel.
Wow.
The last RSA, and yeah, and that was the week everything was
That's right.
imploding.
Yeah. Well, that week we were just sanitizing our hands all the time, but we were
Right.
walking around like,
Not realizing that,
Yeah.
that was the least of the
Yes,
problem. We had the attack vector all wrong at
we
that point.
did. Oh, what a great, I can tell what line of business you're in.
So your line of business, that of LookingGlass, is risk, cyber risk. So first question, I know you had an announcement not too long ago.
hmm
Talk a bit about that.
Well, I mean, a couple of announcements, really. This is week 4 on the job for me. So one of the announcements was that LookingGlass acquired a company I was building called Next5. So
Mhm.
Next5 is now part of LookingGlass, and as part of that, I became the CEO of LookingGlass. So there's really no better.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. There's no better way to jump into a new job in the cybersecurity industry than to immediately go to RSA. So timing is perfect. Also announced new products. Our Scout Suite, which is an integrated set of products that cover everything from threat intelligence to vulnerability assessment. Really what we're calling, and others this week have been talking about, this attack surface management, really understanding your attack surface. So anyway, we announced that Scout Suite like last week, I think.
So a tall order, attack surface management, because the attack surface just in the last 2.5 years, I mean, I've been coming to RSA for 20 years, and we always talk about the attack surface is expanding.
hmm
But it's been particularly stark these last 2 years as everybody has pushed their resources into the cloud.
hmm
And just we've seen the explosion in attacks targeting weaknesses along the supply chain.
hmm
And I don't think I have any conversation where third party risk doesn't come up.
hmm
So within that context and that widening of the attack surface, talk about where you're putting the focus in terms of addressing customer needs
hmm
to deal with that attack surface, and how it differs than maybe perhaps the approach of a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot to that. I'd say that one thing that we have to recognize is that just because we're in this RSA environment, there are turns of phrase and buzzwords that just blow up all of a sudden, and they're not all that well defined, right? So whether it's what is AIML and how are you doing it, but also this week I've seen maybe a dozen press releases about attack surface management. So I think it means a lot of things, and it means different things to different companies or different things to different customers. And
For sure.
when we use those words, what we're really trying to get to is helping our customers understand the way an adversary sees them. And that adversary is going to be seeing them from the outside, at least initially. And so what we're trying to bring together for a customer is the threat picture, who is targeting them, as early as we can see that. So at the time that perhaps in a dark web marketplace, there's an adversary that's seeking access to company X, or there's an actor who's selling accesses to company X. So seeing those very, very, very early indicators, and then at the same time, analyzing all of the ways that company, any of our customers, all of the various ways that they have internet exposure, all of the assets that are connected to the internet. And sometimes, if you think about the way that things were in the old days, you did scans of what you know to be your infrastructure. But I think, at least in our experience, what we're discovering is that most of our customers, as they move to the cloud, have lots of exposure that they don't quite track in the same way, and oftentimes don't even know is there. And so it's a lot more than kind of the old idea of scans. To understand, again, if you have what is the exposure, those that you're going to address through reducing those vulnerabilities, getting those things under control, shutting down unused services, and so forth. But then being able to prioritize things by also knowing which adversary and how they're likely to attack you. It's just, there's so many vulnerabilities to close, right? And as you said, there's so much of an explosion of that attack surface. We should always be doing the things, the hygiene and the cleanup and the controls and vulnerability and patch management to address them. But when that becomes so much, you've got to prioritize based on the most likely threats that would exploit those.
Got it. Now, this particular segment isn't for a demo, but I always ask the question of, if you're a prospective customer, talk about what the user experience looks like.
Yeah, and so, and this is an area that, in my mind is continuing to evolve for our products. But what we really want is to be able to have that single pane of glass where you can see your threat intelligence in the context of the assets that you're responsible for managing, and your third-party vendors, your supply chain, your critical suppliers. And so when those things are in different products that are not integrated together, that job is really, really hard. And I'd say that most of the time, not most of the time, much of the time in a SOC or another an analyst's life is cutting and pasting between a variety of different tools and systems, and so trying to provide that integrated view. But my view is that we want our APIs to be first-class citizens in our product. That the only way to engage isn't just through our user interfaces, but it's through we build our user interfaces on our API. Our API is available to others, and so it may make a lot more sense in some customers to integrate within their existing ServiceNow environment or their existing Splunk environment. And many of our customers really just rely on the data and the analytics that we provide, but through their existing frameworks and tools. And so,
pardon me,
I think the last thing that anybody really wants is to be forced into one single ecosystem. We'd like to be. I like to work with customers that have kind of best of breed solutions across different product categories, but all tightly integrated together. And so, a lot of our focus in our Scout suite has really been that rich API experience as well.
Very good. So talk about. I always refer to it as the customer cry for help when they come to you and they're desperate to really solve problems that they're having in visibility and the like. What are some of the common concerns that people are coming to you for help on?
Yeah, I think there's there's two or three ways to look at that. We have customers that have been acquiring and using threat intelligence, and their cry for help is, how do I action this threat intelligence? Or I'm getting too much, noise. I'm getting a lot of alerts, and then I get alert fatigue, and I don't really know. I don't get enough context from that threat to really put it into action. And so, one of the kinds of cry for help is, can you make sense of that? Can you give me the numbers of events that I really need to focus on? Can you make it more proactive, not just search driven? And so that's for customers that are really have already been using and trying to do the threat intelligence job. I think the other thing that we hear is just, can we buy some lead time and some priorities on the kinds of incidents that are going to happen to us. And I would say those we hear from customers that have had a significant incident or a significant breach.
Mm-hmm.
And they're asking that question of how can we get ahead of that, and how could we know, and how could we be more visible. And so they're new customers of threat intelligence services, but in products and services in the way that we see things, I think is what's so unique. Is like, yes, we can give you that really earliest warning, but also it's more than the warning. It's and what do you do about it? Because most of our customers don't get to go after the threat actors. They have to respond to what those threat actors are going to be doing by, again, hardening their systems, but doing that in a prioritized way.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about LookingGlass at RSA. Do you have a booth?
We do have a booth.
North, south?
It
east,
is south.
West? Remember when it used to just be in one place?
Yeah, and it's interesting that there's like a little, it doesn't quite fill up the room, so that now there's like this unofficial and unpaid for meeting area behind the cloth if you need one, because it didn't quite fill it out. But we're on kind of one of the far edges. We've got a booth. We've got a LookingGlass hacked up Pac-Man game in the booth, and we're doing demos there. We did a great networking event last night. I was really pleased with it. We were able to get the new National Cyber Director, Chris Inglis, and the CISA Director, Jen Easterly, to kick that event off for us. And we had, we could have had over 100 executives there, but the restaurant was concerned about fire code issues. So unfortunately, a few people got turned away. But we had a great room full of, current customers, partners, and just other, the community that we all work in, and it was great for me to kind of launch my time as CEO, and my chairman, who was the acting CEO before me, was able to be there too. So it's kind of our changing of the guard, so to speak. But yeah, and then we've got a good team here, probably 20 folks here that will be all over everybody else's events too, as we just kind of reconnect with our colleagues and friends.
Great. So everybody remember to go visit LookingGlass, play some Pac-Man. I already have.
Good. You got it there's prizes and there's T-shirts, as there always are. The Pac-Man T-shirt seems to be a big hit. I've seen a few of those around and thought that they were employees I hadn't met yet, but they were just people who had gotten a T-shirt and thought it was cool. So,
well, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
And I hope you have a great rest of the week. And we will be back with some more programming shortly. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the RSA conference. I'm Billbrenner, VP of Content Strategy here at Cyber Risk Alliance, and I'm very pleased to be here with Victor Gemra. He is the CEO and founder of Fortifieddata. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How is it going for you so far?
It's going well.
Yeah.
It's a great event. So, pleasure to be here.
Great. So, question right out of the gate. So, Fortifieddata is all about integrated cyber risk management. Talk about what that is.
Great. That's a great way to phrase it. Fortifieddata being an integrated cyber risk management, especially in this day and age, could mean a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about the challenges that a lot of security practitioners and CISOs have with bringing context to risks throughout their infrastructure or throughout their environment, and being able to ingest data from your SIM products or network security vulnerability assessments, application security vulnerabilities, and so forth, and creating contextualized risk intelligence data that's actionable is what Fortifieddata is all about. And the goal is really to have security professionals be laser focused on the risk, the true risk to the organization, or that the organization is facing, and help them prioritize that, because we all know security budgets and resources are extremely limited. and they would always be. So it allows the security professional to understand where should he place those limited resources, based on a prioritized list. And there are a few considerations to be made. It's not just producing data. You have to look at what the impact is to the organization, how assets are classified, what are the crown jewels of the organization, where is sensitive data stored throughout the infrastructure, and what's the likelihood of certain threats becoming realized. Being able to contextualize that and to create the output in a risk-informed manner is what fortified data is all about.
So paint a picture for me. So if you are a fortified data client and they're using the product, what does it look like? Talk about, dashboard setup, or how you work with clients to help them get it acclimated to their specific needs.
Absolutely. So the fortified data platform actually comprises of two separate applications. One's for enterprise risk and the other is for third-party risk management. So an organization leveraging the enterprise risk management application is presented with a dashboard that on the line, the lowest level of data set is the raw vulnerability data across their infrastructure, network, applications, combined with threat intelligence data. And then the next level is the contextualized risk intelligence component I mentioned. What does this data mean to my organization once I classify all the assets based on data being stored or transmitted through those systems? What is this threat based on these vulnerabilities that we've identified? What's the likelihood of that threat event being present within the organization based on controls that I have in place or not in place, or the effectiveness of those controls? What is the impact to the organization? And that middle layer is presented on the dashboard in various ways, extremely customizable, but also the final output is what really sets the platform apart from other risk quantification products. Because we present it in two formats. One is as a risk rating, and the other is via an annualized loss expectancy value. So the financial impact. If this risk scenario were to occur, what does this mean to my organization financially? Am I underinsured from a cyber liability standpoint based on certain types of risk scenarios that I've decided to transfer over? Do I have adequate security controls and budgets for those security controls to mitigate the risk to an acceptable level? And it sort of gives the CISO or that security professional the information that he needs to justify his security budgets. So it's presented in those two formats, and we find that significantly valuable to our customers.
Now, you mentioned risk ratings.
Correct.
And a very popular topic these days. A lot of companies that are in the risk rating business. Talk about how your approach is meant to stand out.
Sure. So we have taken a completely different approach in terms of risk ratings. I myself, I'm a former security, what we call legacy security rating solution user. But those legacy solutions have presented a lot of issues in the industry. I think a lot of security professionals can attest to the fact that using a one-size-fits-all model for assessing risk and presenting it in a ratings format, it's not the ideal way to go. And there are other issues like misattributions of assets, plethora of false positives based on the limited assessment capabilities that these security ratings products can or leverage. So we've taken a different approach with our security ratings capability by allowing configurable risk models,
Customization.
customizable risk models, and allows them to assess different entities depending on how those entities are structured. If you're assessing a law firm, and that law firm probably doesn't have an application or web-facing solution that stores sensitive data, you place less emphasis on web application security issues and more emphasis on internal security issues if they have a server sitting somewhere with your client's IP information. And, vice versa, if you have a SaaS-based product and you want to put more emphasis on application security and network security issues as it relates to the rating, you could do that. So fortifieddata is taking this customizable approach with by allowing our customers to completely configure how they want their third parties or themselves to be assessed and rated based on their threat landscape.
Yep. So, we're talking about there's no one size fits all. There's the need for customizing.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me a bit about, first, a lot of your clients, where are we talking in terms of company size?
So our solution tailors to any size of organization, but what we've seen a lot of clients in the financial services industry, but over what we'll consider enterprise level clients, which is $1 billion and higher in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But our solution tailor, it could be utilized by any size, any type of organization, any size of organization. The goal is to help you quantify risk. Mm-hmm. And as long as you have public-facing resources, we can help you do that.
That's good. That sets us up now for the question that I was going to start with. So there's no one size fits all. Individual companies have their own special needs. Absolutely. And a lot of that really comes down to how big is your company, what industry is your company in. From what you've seen in terms of your experience and your customer experiences, what are some of the key lessons that customers learn when they start using your technology?
Unrealized risks. So essentially, what they may have considered a critical risk to the organization, and they've placed a lot of resources, efforts, and controls, safeguarding controls towards those risks. Mm-hmm. By leveraging our technology and gaining this comprehensive view, from an external or internal standpoint, if they have a cloud environment, being able to gather all the security issues as relates to their entire infrastructure, gives a different perspective of how to prioritize or where to divert their attention to. And again, leveraging just going back to the drawing board from a security perspective, looking at the classification of the assets, looking at the likelihood of certain threat events occurring, looking at the impact to the organization, which is very important. Giving them that sort of perspective is what we've seen a lot of clients, and it's sort of a wow moment for a lot of them because maybe they've placed a lot of emphasis on some server, some web application that maybe is the core platform, but paid less attention to their cloud misconfiguration issues, and maybe that's the easy way for a hacker to gain access. So showing that information has been extremely powerful for a lot of our clients.
So often that the last thing you were thinking about turns out to be one of your biggest risk areas.
Absolutely.
So those lessons, do they tend to be starkest if you're a company on the smaller side,
Right.
or a company on the, I would imagine the bigger the company, the more you're running into that.
Absolutely.
Because the amount of data to keep track of is just so much greater.
Right.
But so if you're a customer that's not quite at the enterprise level, is it pretty much the same types of surprises?
I would say there are much more surprises with the enterprise level clients, but also the mid-market segment is quite interesting because you may have an IT resource, like an IT director, but you don't have the security staff, or you may be leveraging like a vCISO service or so. But they don't actually have that level of insight or visibility until it's surfaced. So
risk is one of many jobs.
Absolutely.
As opposed to having your own team that's strictly about risk.
Absolutely. So we see that, but the larger the organization becomes, and there are things like digital transformation and all sorts of reasons why there's no way without automation to gain this continuous visibility of of risk throughout your infrastructure, and those blind spots just keep increasing. So leveraging a technology like fortifieddata that's continuously assessing to identify those gaps is extremely powerful for all size organizations. But we've seen an increase mid-market to upper market.
Now, final question, because we're almost at time. So people come to a conference like RSA, and there's a lot of bling in front of them.
Right.
A lot of, it's all about buying.
Right.
But the trick here is planning and knowing what you need.
Absolutely.
To buy, and having that deliberative process. From the journey you've had with your customers, any helpful tips in terms of those who are just starting to look at the kind of solution you offer in terms of planning and really understanding the needs before somebody comes to talk to you?
Right. I'll say risk assessments are the number one thing that needs to be done in order to, everyone's always attracted to the new shiny tool, right? And at a conference like RSA, there's a bunch of new products that are always thrown at your face, and hey, this will solve your your IAM issue. This will solve your encryption issue. This will solve your, and it's all over the place.
Zero trust in a box.
Exactly.
Which isn't how zero trust works at all.
Absolutely. But performing a comprehensive risk assessment, it's really at the crux of what organizations need to do in order to determine what, again, you have limited budgets. Where do you divert your security resources? Where do you divert or pour in resources into to mitigate the top risks to the organization? Might be so bent on purchasing this IAM solution, but you've got a firewall issue or something else, right, going on. That's an easier way for a threat actor to gain access to the infrastructure. So being able to, again, perform this comprehensive risk analysis is extremely important, right? And that's what I'll highly recommend to any security practitioner. That's because the job of a security professional, again, is all about risk management.
Yep.
Right. So just being able to leverage the right tools in order to gain that visibility is what I'll recommend.
Great. So we're at time, but this has been great. Been a pleasure catching up with you.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Bill.
Very good.